cheers and welcome to the webinar. It's so good to see you.
You have to see this one.
Okay, let me see. I can't quite read it. Wait, I'm a grandma. I need glasses.
Well, it's in Chinese.
Oh, that's why I can't read it. Okay. Oh, look how cute though. Oh, little boob action. That's great.
Yeah.
How are you, Barbara?
Good. This is logo for the Breastfeeding Society of China. Actually, sorry, it's for Taiwan, not China.
Taiwan.
And it says breastfeeding welcome.
Oh, I love that. Your many travels have had you pick up many things, I'm sure.
Oh my God. Yeah. We could take a walk around the house and I could show you my collections.
It is amazing, isn't it? Well, welcome, Barbara. It's so good to see you. You have been a real inspiration for me for all the decades of my work. And I think you were in it as long as I have been now when I found you. So I'm bowing down to you in all of your incredible years of contribution.
You grew up in Seattle this year when I was
No, I wasn't. No, I spent a number of years in Oregon. You passed through my town once. We had coffee once, but yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remembered that.
Yeah. And then conferences throughout the years. I started on the East Coast. So you were a legend already. So I'm very honored to speak with you today.
Well, I graduated from nursing school in 1974. So that, pretty much.
Before I was born,
Exactly. So.
Well, I'm so grateful that you agreed to come and talk with us today. As you may know, I have a series going called Global Pandemic Midwifery Wisdom e-conference, and we're presenting field reports from midwives all over the globe. Yeah. And we are also doing these kinds of specific topic-focused interviews. And so I'm so grateful you agreed to join us. And today's topic is going to be water birth during the time of the pandemic, water birth during COVID-19. And I know you've done a lot of research in your whole career on water birth. I wonder if you're willing to share with us your research about as it pertains to this specific virus.
Yes, of course. But
awesome.
Well, we'll get into it, but the research on this specific virus is so limited because it's so novel.
Yeah.
And so we have to look at SARS and MERS and HIV and some of the other viruses that dealt with over the years and see if there's anything that needs to be altered from any of those.
Yeah. So let's start with this. First of all, let's just start with will you say where you are and a little synopsis of your illustrious career, who you are?
Yeah. Hi, Augustine. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Barbara Harper. I'm sitting in my office in Boca Raton, Florida, and I've been an independent consultant and midwife for the past 11 years, and also founder and director of Water Birth International since 1988. That's when we began. So that's more than 30 years. And my mission statement, my mission for birth has always been to change the way we welcome babies into the world. And my mission for Water Birth International has always been to make water birth an available option for all women everywhere on the planet. That's pretty much what I've done. So
that's awesome.
And certainly not single-handedly, but for the last 11 years, I've been giving births on occasion. People call me and ask me to come and be their midwife and repeat clients and things like that. And then in hospitals as part of a training program that I put together, and it's been approved by ACOG, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and it's been approved and accepted for CEUs from the American College of Nurse Midwives. And it's taken me, over the whole career, it's taken me to 75 countries to do teaching and training. And this last 11 years, I've had over 10,000 students now.
Wow.
Primarily primarily midwives, but also physicians as well.
That's so exceptional. I'm bowled over by your incredible lifetime commitment, and it's just I'm so honored to have you here. Thank you. So you're in Florida right now. You had planned to travel, but those travel plans were cut short. What are you doing with yourself now that you find this inordinate amount of time? That's why I keep wondering.
Well, last year was a very busy year. United Airlines and its Star Alliance partners love me. I get personal, on my birthday, I get personal signed birthday cards. The pilots who come out and give me, if it's like the day before, or the day after, the day of my birthday, they give me a card. And for the last 5 years in a row, I've traveled over 100,000 miles on United. Last year was 177,000 air miles. I went to 19 countries in 1 year.
Wow.
Don't ever do that.
Wow. Yeah, I hit 96,000 last year, and that felt like a lot. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, well, multiply that times 5.
I can't even imagine. I can't imagine.
Yeah, and so this year in January, I'm looking at my calendar. I write my calendar on my glass sliding doors. I live in Florida. It's an indoor-outdoor house. I have an atrium that I'm sitting in front of with a beautiful fountain. That's where all my orchids are. And so I write things that I need to pay attention to on the windows. You can still see through the windows, but my schedule for this year went like this: Vietnam, China, Macau, Taiwan, Panama, Spain, Israel, Macedonia, and Egypt, then back over to the US for a few things, on to Mexico, Argentina, Chile, Peru. Oh, and in between those was Bali for the ICM.
I know. I was going to see you there.
Yeah. And then what did I miss? Slovenia and Brazil. That's all.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And that has been effectively canceled.
Yeah, you have most of it or all of it is canceled for now. And
I forgot Sweden. Stockholm. We just refunded everybody's money in Stockholm.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everyone. The disruptions everywhere are extensive.
Exactly. And when I talk to midwives and physicians, and last night I attended a Zoom meeting in my city with my rabbi facilitating a coming together of healthcare professionals, and there were about 20 of us. And my not being able to travel and teach paled in comparison to the emergency room physician who's now in charge of the COVID floor at our local regional hospital. And she had one confirmed case 10 days ago, and now the 32-bed unit is full. And that's just in my small town of 100,000 people. So
I know Boca Raton. It's a beautiful area. My sister went to Lynn University, so I've spent some time there.
I go to Lynn all the time. I support the program. Yeah, I love going over to Lynn. So what am I doing to keep busy? I'm studying. I always have a stack of books, and I spent the first week of isolation just going, pardon my French, but oh fuck, what are we in for?
Yeah.
And stress eating and pacing a lot.
Yep. I know. I'm not sure you're alone there. I think that was the general universal response.
Yeah. And talking with my friends and setting up, calls on my phone on WhatsApp and checking in with people, then canceling things and doing all that. And then I sat down and I like to make lists. And because if I don't make lists, then I kind of flounder around. And on my list was to do a program on COVID-19 keeping water safe during COVID-19.
Yeah.
And to that end, I contacted a good friend of mine who runs the website birthpedia.net. He and I have been working together to put up what I usually teach out in the world is 2 or 3 day water birth certification course for midwives, physicians, an education course for doulas and nurses. And I have been teaching in person online for the last 5 years. And sometimes that's a 2 day course. And it's been put up on a projector or a television screen in hospitals as far and wide as Dubai, China, things like that. So I had worked out a deal with Gabriel, who runs birthpedia.net, to help me film a parent session on water birth. And this was the day before we shut down. It was March 10th, I think. And we built a set and invited five pregnant couples, and we did a wonderful film, and that's going to go up in little chunks and pieces for free for parents.
Wonderful.
And I didn't talk about COVID-19 because it was just burgeoning. It was just coming into at least awareness. We knew about it in China, but, we waited a long time in the US before we put,
and especially in Florida.
Yes. So even now, we're still arguing about it.
Yeah, I saw the Florida report. It said actually that going to worship was an acceptable group gathering.
Yes, I read that 2 days ago when it was announced on the radio. I went to the computer and I looked it up and found the actual document that shut down the state, and everything shut down except churches, synagogues, and mosques. My synagogue has been shut down for 3 weeks, and we're having televised and Zoom seders next week on Wednesday when Passover starts. So yes, so what I started doing was just searching for articles, searching, and on COVID-19 and pregnancy. And the only things that I could find were from China at this point. And I have plenty of friends in China, and I started sending out messages. My WeChat, I don't know if you're familiar with WeChat, but it's Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp on steroids.
Yep.
And I have about, 15,000 friends on WeChat. And I started sending messages. What's going on? Did you stop water birth in Wuhan? Did you stop water birth in Suzhou? Did you stop water birth in Shanghai? Everywhere. I have been in more cities in China than most Chinese people. And when I sit on an airplane going to China and somebody asks me, "Oh, are you a tourist?" I said, "No, actually, I work in China." "Oh, you work in China?" Yes. And then I tell them what I do. And they say, "Oh, well, you work in Beijing." No, I work in Beijing. I work in Shanghai. I work in Wenzhou, Hangzhou, Suzhou, Juzhou. And all the cities that start with Z or that end in ZHOU are pronounced Zhou, and it means river. And so there's so many rivers in China. And so there's so many cities, and I've been to all of them. And the only reason I go there is to implement water birth programs.
Right.
Water birth in China has outpaced anywhere in the world.
Wow.
In the world. There are some hospitals in China, Chaoning Hospital, and Chaoning is a suburb of Shanghai. I first went there with my research and water birth partner, Diane Garland. She's a UK midwife, and she's written a book called Water Birth and Attitude to Care. And then the revised edition is Revisiting Water Birth and Attitude to Care. I've written her forwards every time she does a new edition. So she and I went there on invitation in 2005, and we had a 3-day conference with 200 doctors that were chosen from all around the country. And that was the beginning, because I had consulted at that hospital in 2004 by email, and an American man who was the vice president of Walmart married a Chinese woman, and they had the first water birth in China at the end of 2004. And then they invited us in 2005 to come and start trainings. And that hospital in Chaoning they invited me to come when they had their 5,000th water birth. And that was I have to think back, 2011. So that was 6 years. And then now they've had over 10,000 water births since they started in 2005. And
That's amazing.
And because of the population, the size of the population, there's a city in Hubei province where Wuhan is, that the hospital in Shijiazhuang does 26,000 births in 1 year.
Wow.
I went there they had already implemented water birth, and I went there to work with the staff, and they gave me 33 medical students to do births all in one morning. And from the time I got there at 7 o'clock in the morning till just noon, we did 5 births.
Wow.
And so sometimes I'm facilitating a water birth in those hospitals. And I just thought maybe I should get you a copy of this book. The hospital in Suzhou last year in 2019, I went back to the same hospital after being there in 2018 and facilitating their first 3 water births. And what I do is I educate the staff for 3 to 5 days, and then I'm on call 24/7 for anybody that comes in who meets the eligibility requirement, which is 1 baby head down, completed 36 weeks in the 37th week of pregnancy, no visible signs of infection, of blood, skin, or upper respiratory, and in labor. And that's the requirement. And so if somebody comes in and who's had some of the classes with me as well, because we'll do parent classes and trainings also, then they send a driver, take me from my hotel back to the hospital, and we set up the pool and wait for birth. So in 2018, we had our first 3 there, and the very first one was a woman having her first baby. It's almost all primiparas because of the population. And when I visited her postpartum to help with breastfeeding and skin disease, she asked me through our interpreter, would you please give the baby an English name? A lot of the mothers in China ask me to give their babies an English name. And so my being Jewish, there's a lot of Rebecca's and Rachel's, no worries, I'm sorry. And so with her being the very first baby in Suzhou, China, to be born in the tub, I named her Eva. She was the first one. So
Aww.
fast forward to 2019, and I'm back there at the same time of year, and it was Eva's birthday. And so the hospital threw a birthday party for all of their water births for the whole year, which turned out to be 55 water births in 1 year at the hospital for the first 3. And it was a big deal. They threw a party for 1,000 people.
I can't imagine that. I mean, if you just take the pure facts of that story, a hospital threw a party for moms who chose to birth in the water. That is just mind-blowing.
Is that not? Yeah. So part of what I've been doing during this time is writing down all my stories, and I want to film them as well. And so the hospital presented me with a book commemorating in photographs. It was a photography book, like leather bound, and it was commemorating Eva's birth. It showed me catching the baby, holding the baby in the water, her postpartum, me kissing the baby's hand when we did the naming ceremony, and then they put little pictures of every single water baby that was born in that year.
Oh my
And
gosh. Oh my gosh.
verklempt, which is Yiddish for like on the verge of
Yeah.
tears. And so they did not stop their water birth program during their COVID outbreak.
Oh.
And neither did Wuhan, neither did Chennai. And so I gathered all of this. Well, what did you do? Well, you see, there's something that people don't understand about China and COVID-19 and all that. Every single birth in China, on every single birth unit, I don't care if they do 200 births a month or 2,000 births a month, you dress up for every single one. You cover your shoes, you cover your head, you cover your face, you cover all of your body, whether it's a water birth, a bed birth, a squatting birth, hands and knees on the bed. You, the practitioner, is covered. And most of the women are wearing masks. That's just the way it is.
It's a cultural
Comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, I have fought it. Into the unit. Yes, I'll change into scrubs, but I'm not going to wear the surgical gown, the sterile surgical gown. It's too bloody hot. And I'll put a mask on, but it'll be around my chin, not over my face. And now, when I'm fortunate enough to go back to China, I will probably dress down,
Yeah.
because. And so I gathered my research. I contacted people in Italy, Israel, Egypt, UAE, Spain, Mexico, Canada, US, and China, Vietnam. Vietnam wasn't doing that. We had a training, but they hadn't set up their program yet. We're still trying to get back. I was supposed to be there, just finishing up right now and going on to, or was I going on to, I would be finishing up in China shortly. So what I gathered was, and also the UK. Diane and I met, and Diane is retired. Diane Garland is retired from the hospital in where she works near Kent, England, in the south of London. And they are still, even as of yesterday, doing water births. And the supervisor met her before at this particular hospital. She told the midwives, look, if you don't want to do water births here in this hospital that has had a 25-year history of doing water births in this hospital, if you don't want to participate, you can go to your lockers, get your uniforms, and leave the hospital, because we are going to do water births.
That's such strong statements compared to what we're hearing in the US.
Exactly. Well, guess what's the capital of fear and liability and trepidation? The US. So water births continued in China. Water births continued in the UK with some places. What it boils down to, Augustine, is resources and staffing versus practicality. So if there's, I interviewed another midwife at a really busy London hospital, and she said, we just can't do it right now because we're afraid. And we're afraid that we don't have enough staff. We're afraid that we don't have enough masks. We're afraid that we don't, that everybody's going to present with a false negative in their testing. And women still aren't tested unless they have symptoms that require action. And that's what's going on in the US. Nobody's being tested unless they have symptoms that require hospitalization. And so you might have some people that are positive that come onto the unit and want to have a water birth. And from look, let's go back to MERS, or actually SARS, because I was in touch with people in China during SARS. I canceled a trip to China during the SARS epidemic. And that was just the beginning of their water birth programs there. And since then, I've been in at least 50 cities in China. And every single one of the cities is more than 1 million people, more than the entire population of Oregon. You know?
Oh my God, it's just mind blowing.
So, two things that gave me the confidence to tell my midwife colleagues, you don't need to stop water birth. The first one is what the CDC has said about the research on SARS, that it was such a fragile virus that when it came into contact with water, any water, it basically disintegrated. And now we fast forward to COVID-19, which is a SARS variety of bacteria. And the CDC's official opinion is that hot tubs and swimming pools are safe that contract the virus in that environment. And then add on top of it an official statement about HIV and the viruses that make up the complex of AIDS, the immune deficiency disease. And that is that, once again, they're fragile viruses. And as you know, viruses are different from bacteria because bacteria is a living being. We need bacteria to be humans, for every single organ in our bodies, our lungs, our liver, our kidneys, our vagina, our eyes, our mouth, our nose, every single thing has its unique and original microbiome. The first book on microbiome that used the words microbiome was actually published in 1963. It was originally published in French, then translated to English. And it talked about the microbiome of every single organ in our body. The reproductive system has its own microbiome, including the vagina and the uterus. And viruses are RNA that has a fat-soluble coating, if it were. That's why hand washing works, to get rid of it, because if you have any kind of agent that breaks apart the unstable, fragile exterior, it makes it non-communicable. And the water is that environment. I don't know why people aren't getting this even more than and seeing the water as the protector, not the evil producer of
I've sort of for years always kind of clung to the old saying, the solution to pollution is dilution.
Hello, that I published that in my blog and
exactly
wrote, and it came from my dear friend of blessed memory, Dr. Michael Rosenthal.
Exactly. That's what I read 30 years ago. He was such an incredible home birth pioneer, water birth pioneer. The first intervention is the intervention the woman does to herself when she leaves her own front door.
Exactly.
This is one of his. But I read that years and years ago, and we've sort of applied it to GBS and various, E. coli and various things like that. But it seems to make sense, and especially the research around water being enough to destabilize the lining of the virus. It seems obvious to me.
And then the CDC goes on to state, and I'll send you these links to the CDC site.
Please, we'll put them in the comments. Yeah,
they're all linked on my website as well, in my very last blog that I published on Sunday, this past Sunday. And there's a downloadable article there keeping water safe during COVID-19. All municipal water supplies in the US are treated in order to mitigate the communicable diseases that come from water, like Pseudomonas and E. coli and things like that. Every single water supply in every single city has bacteria in it and can hold viruses, but the water treatment plants, when I was writing that particular chapter of the of Gentle Birth Choices, my book, I actually interviewed different parts of the different divisions of the FDA and the CDC and water treatment plants. I went to pool shops and hot tub specialists. I went to hotels and said, what do you treat your equipment with? How safe is it for me to get into your hot tub and not get an infection? And so just even municipal water is treated with either bromine or chlorine. And
Yeah.
okay, the pushback that I get from that is, oh my God, chlorine's so bad for the skin and so bad for it will kill the microbiome. No, it won't. Because guess what? It evaporates. So if you poured a glass of water out of your tap, and we're so dependent on bottled water, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Okay, I make my own distilled water, fine, but I drink water out of the tap everywhere except China and India. And anywhere there's a sign that says, boil your water first, okay? Because I don't know their systems, but I'll drink water out of the tap in Spain and Switzerland and UK and Italy, and I feel safe about that. And quite frankly, I've never been sick. Never, not except for a cat bite that I had. So if you pour a glass of water out of Boca Raton water system, and it might smell like it has a little bit of chlorine in it, and you pour the glass of water and you let it sit for 30 minutes, the chlorine evaporates. And the same thing with tubs. So over the years, I have suggested to women, and it's even in our cleaning protocol, which I can send you. You fill a tub and you put 1 ounce of bleach in it and let it sit for an hour. You stir it all up, and that can be a 300 to 400 liter tub. It doesn't matter. 1 ounce of bleach is enough to kill Pseudomonas, E. coli, bloodborne pathogens, and all viruses.
Wow.
You're done.
Wow.
And let's talk about letting water sit. Things will grow in water if it's warm and the mother is in it and she's sloughing off her skin cells. And with the skin cells, it doesn't destroy her bacteria, but we're losing skin cells all the time. And then those skin cells start to grow things. Well, after 24 hours, you need to either change the water or refresh the water. And over the years, I've said you can do 2 things. You can draw out through your drain pump half of the water in the tub and add fresh water from your municipal water source, and that brings in a whole nother fresh
Dose of chlorine.
Exactly. Or let's say you have a 400 liter tub and you can add that 1 ounce of bleach. It's 30 milliliters of bleach. And the mother should not be in the tub. Maybe she's had a lull in her labor. And let's say you have a heated tub, because we used to have heated tubs. Now we don't so much anymore because they're all inflatables. So, but if she's been in for, let's say, 24 hours and you don't want to dump all of the water and start over again, you could refresh the water, A, or B, just add 30 milliliters of bleach, let it sit for an hour, and she could get back in. It's not going to harm anything. And
That's so fascinating.
yeah.
And what about some of the other additives like sea salt?
Okay. When we first started water birth practices, we were recommending for the formula was very difficult, but it was about, and I'm going to switch from the metric system back over to pounds and ounces and gallons. If you had, let's say you had 100 gallons of water, you would have to put in 8 pounds of sea salt, 8 pounds to get a salinity that would have, and sea salt does not affect most bloodborne pathogens, and it does not affect E. coli. So if you go on to the FDA, the EPA website also, the Environmental Protection Agency, if Trump hasn't taken it down completely, sorry, because I've always gone there to find what hospital things are acceptable for cleaning the tub, cleaning the exterior of your portable, even though you're using a disposable liner. But let's say you're in a poor resource area and you can't afford a liner, and you're going to clean the tub after you're finished. Yes, you could use grapefruit seed oil extract. You could use hydrogen peroxide. None of them have
Alcohol.
Yeah, and none of them are going to be as effective as household bleach. The other one that is approved by the EPA for use in hospitals and for home birth, and this is what I ended up using in the 90s through 2000, about 2008, before we had portables. I manufactured a portable tub. It was called the Gentle Birth Pool.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and we were renting them out through Water Birth International and selling them all over the world. And we had 20 to 30 rentals per month. And we had to clean every square millimeter of those tubs, even though we used disposable liners. I invented the disposable liner. And
I know you did. I remember.
do you remember the story?
Tell it. Go ahead and tell it.
It was a home birth that I was attending, and I spent the night. She was having some prodromal labor. It was her third baby. And third babies are pretty much tricksters. You know, you'll have 4 hours of labor and then it stops. And so they were quite a distance from my home. And so I didn't go home. I spent the night. And when she got up the next morning, I was in the kitchen and I was fixing breakfast for everybody. And I had made ground sesame seed pancakes. They were vegan. And this was, I'm trying to remember what year, like 1990. 1989, I think it was 1989. And I had set up the tub, and the tubs we were using then were imported from China. They were inflatable, and they had all these baffles in them all the way around. They were actually sold as a portable hot tub, and we sealed off the place where you'd have the recirculation in the heater and just simply used them as a birthing tub. And about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, she was in her labor and she was birthing, and she was leaning over the side of the tub, and the baby started to emerge from behind. And at the same time, she pooped in the water, and it was diarrhea, and it was full of sesame seeds.
Oh my goodness.
There were 29,387,455 sesame floating on top of the water.
Oh my God. Oh, Barbara, that is the best story.
And I didn't, and I had a sieve from the kitchen that the sesame seeds went through.
Oh my God, this is the best visual. I mean, it's the worst, but it's making, oh God.
It tells it quite plainly. All right. I whipped off my t-shirt. I loved that shirt. It was my birth shirt. Okay. It was like, I grabbed it for every birth, and I whipped off my t-shirt and surrounded the sesame seeds and pulled them to the side and dumped them on a towel with my t-shirt on the floor caught the baby under the water and pushed it through her legs, because that's what you do. You push it to the other side so the mother can pick it up herself. And everything was great. The baby was wonderful. The children were just enamored with their little baby sister. And about a half an hour after the birth, she's still sitting in the tub. We're waiting on the placenta. And she looks at me and says, "Why are you in your bra? Where's your t-shirt?" I said to her, "Oh my God, it was so hot in here. I just had to take it." And I never told her what happened because she would have been embarrassed. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem with pooping in the tub, is embarrassment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, except for little tiny seeds, that's a totally different scenario. So I understand your action.
So to finish the story, okay, I drained the water out of the tub and I rinsed down all the sesame seeds, and I tried to, and I didn't want to clog up the motor of my drain pump and all that. So I was scooping them out with a glass, and getting them into the toilet. And I packed up the tub and took it home. I always clean my tubs within the first 24 hours of birth, because you don't want to let them sit, because they will mold or mildew if you don't clean them right away. So I set it up. In those days, I was cleaning them in my dining room table, basically. I put a sheet over the dining room table, and then I would put the tub on top of it and clean every square millimeter. And I could not get all of the sesame seeds out. I kept finding, and I could not rent that tub out with one single sesame seed in there. It took me 5 months to get all the sesame seeds out.
God, Barbara, that is
Baffles. Every time I would check it, there'd be another sesame seed. And so right then and there, I called up and a plastics manufacturer and a garbage bag manufacturer and said, "I need a big garbage bag for my tub. And here's dimensions. We need to double that because it has to go down the sides." And that's how we came up with disposable liners.
It's so brilliant. It's so brilliant. And finding those little seeds for 5 months is not only indicative of sesame seeds plot to take over the world, but actually that we are missing bacteria every time. That is how invasive it is.
Yeah, exactly. So my children, my daughter in particular, during this, she lives in Portland, Oregon still. She works for women's, infants, and children. She's a lactation counselor there, and normally would see and weigh 20 babies a day and help with breastfeeding. But now she's passing out even more WIC cards because of the current economy and status. But we talk every day on WhatsApp, on video, and she held up her bottle of Clorox with bathroom cleaner, and she said, "The only reason I have this, I have to thank you for it, because every time I go to our house, I go to the store and buy one for the bathroom, one for the kitchen. And my house has one under the sink, and each bathroom has their own for each bathtub. And I'm a stickler with cleaning. I'm the cleaning maven. I often said if I wasn't a midwife, I would have a cleaning business." It's because it's not that I'm afraid of it. No, my grandmother was a midwife for 47 years, and her house was spotless. She taught me how to clean, and I watched her, and she taught me how to sterilize her equipment and how to even sterilize baby blankets and diapers and all of that. I learned from her from a very early age, and she employed me to do her cleaning as well. So for this particular time, there is no difference. There's no difference in your cleaning protocol. There is no difference in how you conduct a birth. And I suggest strongly that you keep your hands out.
Yeah.
Let the mother do everything. And so that says when the head is born, let it rotate on its own.
Yeah, no fishing for cords. It's not useful.
No, 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 no. Hands off. Hands off. I I I want to show you what I'm talking about in a piece of video. If you want to,
Yeah, share your screen. Go for it. Yeah.
okay, let me find the video first. And this is my friend Lisa Marie Oxenham, and she's a midwife in Southern California. Yeah. And this one has been on YouTube and Instagram. So hang on.
Yeah, we can link to the original as well in the notes, in the show notes today.
Okay. I had to find you. Okay.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you.
Okay.
Did you find it?
I'm sharing it.
I don't see it. If you click share your screen, do you have that option?
It did. Let me stop it.
I know. Technology, right?
There we go.
Yep. You got it.
Okay. Now you can see it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Go for it.
I want you to see where the midwife's hands are. Okay. And this is my favorite position for women to give birth upright in the tub. I call it the proposal. Or taking in, this is Lisa, and she just verified that there's a cord around the neck. Take the cord off, she said to the mother. It's a hypnosis birth. She was listening to her tape.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I always say you can really evaluate a baby's well-being just by watching. There's not much we have to do.
Exactly. It's not about the first breath. It's about the neurological capabilities of the baby.
That's a brilliant way to say it. Yeah.
And okay, I'm gonna go back to stop sharing.
That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. It's a great visual.
So hands off. And I get this question all the time. How long can you wait? Head is out. You wait until the baby rotates. And I call it my 30-30-30 guideline. In the first 30 seconds that that baby's head is out, you basically carefully observe the neurologic capabilities of this baby. Babies blink. Babies, depending on the position of the mother, you might be able to see the baby's face. Babies will make
Grimace. Yeah. Yeah.
like a little fish, like that. They do not gulp water. They don't gulp, not at all. And you can go ahead and touch the baby's head, the mother can. And there's no reason to check for a cord because we're not going to cut a cord. The baby will always deliver with the cord or through the cord.
Yeah, I've never cut a cord on the perineum.
Never. I was taught to because I was old school.
And I think just like cutting an episiotomy, it's one of those incredibly rare emergency techniques that we keep somewhere in some part of our consciousness, but it should be used less than 1% of the time.
Less than 1/10 of 1%.
Right.
It's, and if you want to do any of those things, then you ask the mother to leave the pool.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So,
Water birth is for low risk and normal.
Physiologically good with acceptable variations, and acceptable variations are breech and twins.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's awesome.
So you saw that Lisa did not have gloves on, and she put her hand down, and I probably counted to 5. Her hand was in the water for about 5 seconds. Yeah. She verified that there was a cord, and she told the mother to take it off. I remember teaching a group of nurse midwives over in Tampa a couple of years ago. And the following year, they wanted me to come to their statewide conference. A couple of people wanted me to come again. And the reaction of midwives who work in hospitals, as opposed to the midwives who work at home or in birth centers, who see all normal women who have no other comfort management systems other than the tub. Those midwives said, she doesn't even want her hands in the water. That's a huge liability. We have to deliver the baby. And my answer to that is, does the lifeguard on the beach get paid if he doesn't have to rescue someone that day? He or she.
It's beautiful. That's a great analogy, Barbara.
So, okay, COVID-19, you're doing water births. Put on the freaking gloves. Okay, they're available. The long gloves are available. The best long gloves I've ever had came from Turkey. They have a scrunchie at the top of the glove and they stay in place. The ones that we get in the US, and I started that trend because I called veterinary supply stores and found cow gloves, cow insemination gloves, and said, these are perfect for water birth, except for one small thing. If you put your hands in the water longer than a minute, they're not patent. The water seeps through that veterinary glove, and then you go and the water gets on your hand. And if you put a double glove, if you put a cuff glove over it, then water gets down in and trapped between the two gloves and migrates and gets to your hand anyway. And you go like this, and it runs down your arm and soaks your scrub top and your bra. And so that an infection control nightmare.
Oh God, midwives are my favorite people, and this is the most ridiculous thing we put ourselves in. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, no. So right now, I suggest one, keeping your hands out, but two, wear the gloves. Put the protective gloves on.
Yeah.
And pretend like you're in China.
Yeah.
Dress down. You know, one of my biggest complaints about hospitals in the US is nobody changes their shoes. Nobody covers their shoes. You know, it's a tradition all over the East and in Europe. When you enter somebody's house, you take your shoes off at the door and you put on a pair of slippers. I have slippers at my door. You come to my house, you take off your shoes. Thank you very much. Because all the schmutz that you bring in, and hospitals are the worst, absolute worst. So shoe coverings, keep a pair of shoes in your locker room if you're a hospital midwife, and only wear those shoes. But in China, you put on clogs or the plastic like sandals or whatever, and they're outside of the door of the whole entire labor and delivery suite. You know, there's rows and rows and rows and rows of shoes, and you grab a pair that have never left that area and you put them on, or you cover your shoes. So I would love to see that happen.
Yeah. Totally. That would make a huge difference.
What happens in Australian hospitals?
I don't know yet. I think that they now are having this strong recommendation that you have hospital shoes in your locker and you have home shoes that you wear home. But I'm not employed here yet. The process to get registered here involves a portfolio evaluation of your international qualifications, and that office is currently closed.
Right. It's going to be a while, definitely. So your personal protection is important. You're going to be, in this realm, we have to talk about skin to skin also, because I have never attended a water birth and immediately cut the cord, even in China. And sometimes I have to put my hand over the top of the tub and look at everybody in their eyes and say, what's the word that I always say? I can't think of it now. My Chinese escapes me at the moment.
That's okay. You're excused.
Yeah, it's a really funny word, but it means don't you dare. You know, I started speaking spontaneously in Chinese during a birth.
Did you?
Yeah, because I've taught so many times, and every single time it's translated, and I'm always paying attention to the translation and like Zashan Hao, good afternoon or good morning. It'll come back to me. And so I want us to be more like China. And the one time that I had to hold my hand over the tub was to protect against the neonatal nurse who had the scissors and the clamp in each of her hands and was ready to take the baby over to the warmer.
Yep.
And I just said, no, you're not going to do that. She did it when I turned my back, but the mother had been holding the baby for about 6 or 7 minutes. The absolute minimum time to fill the lungs with blood is 3 minutes. It's
Oxygen.
the
Oxygen.
next
Oxygen.
contraction. The next contraction after the baby is fully out of the water.
Yeah.
The next contraction will give you enough placental transfusion to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And if you wait for physiologic third stage, it's even better. So, and during that time of physiologic third stage, you've got 15 to 20 minutes of the baby hanging out on the mother's chest.
Yeah.
In the world of COVID-19, we're now talking about potential vertical transmission, and they want to take off babies. That's another reason that they do a water birth. And they want to isolate the babies, even on mothers that don't have a test, because they're assuming that everybody that walks in the door is positive. So, in medicine, it's throw a blanket over everybody, test everyone. Let's talk about GBS. In the US, everybody has to have a GBS test.
They don't even test for it in Indonesia. They
No.
don't have a test for it.
No. And they don't test in China, they only test European or American women.
Oh, really?
Because, and this is what they tell me, because you're all fat. And Chinese women aren't going to be GBS positive because they're not fat.
Wow. That brings up so many questions about the human biome. Is the overgrowth of GBS related to the dysbiosis that comes because of malnutrition, like macro malnutrition? How fascinating.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Because I could, this is a topic for another day.
Yeah.
You heal GBS in 3 weeks by eliminating all flour, all sugar,
Yeah.
sodas, everything, and eating a plant-based diet for 3 weeks. Test again, you'll be negative.
Wow. Yeah. We've heard lots of reports of that. Well, so I want to wrap up today by sort of summarizing the advice that you've shared so brilliantly. Water birth is safe if the water is safe, totally safe if the water is safe. And you gave us ideas of how to make the water safe. Protect yourself.
You're thinking about infection control procedures for 3 people. Let's talk about the mother. You are going to have an inclusion criteria and an exclusion criteria. And inclusion is 1 baby head down, 36 completed in the 37th week, no visible signs of infection, or she's had an infection that has been treated, like herpes, like you have a plan for GBS. You have a plan for HIV with a low viral load. Okay. Those women can give birth in water if they've been treated. We have no such plan for COVID-19. And exclusion is fever. So even a mild fever of 38 times 4 hours or 100.4 times 4 hours, that's an exclusion. Okay. So that person is not going to get into a warm bath. So that protects the mother. The baby is protected by the water itself. The water is not going to harm the microbiome. Baby's still going to have a layer of protection. The vernix
and then be recovered as soon as he's on and being kissed by mom and on skin and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. It does not affect the baby's ability to breastfeed, being born in water. Somebody said that the chlorine in the water was going to change the baby's smell. No, the pheromones that are released from the separation of the placenta and the beginning of prolactin come from a fat-soluble pheromone that is not destroyed in the water. And so then that brings us to the third person that needs protection, and that's the provider. And look, if you need to do a spacesuit, the first water birth that took place at Chicago Northwestern Prentice Women's Hall, the doctors both had spacesuits on. Look at the way. And I always joke that this baby is going to think that aliens are real because the first vision of a human being was one that was wearing a spacesuit. So,
Yeah, there's actually been some very convincing illustrations of our social image of an alien comparing to what doctors gowned with masks look like. So yeah, there's a lot of ideas that the whole idea of alien invasion and the idea of what an alien is comes from our pre-verbal memories.
it's birth memory. It's intrinsic memory. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I love your breaking it down, mom, baby, and provider, and being clear about all that. And then I also really love your focus on understanding what normal physiologic birth looks like. And if it's normal, don't do anything. You don't need to have your hands in the tub. You don't need to be checking for cord. You don't need to be listening for heart tones when there's a head visible. Like, you just leave it alone.
And you never do a badge exam in the water, ever.
Tell us more about this.
If you let's say she's been in the water for 3 hours and you want to check where she is. Why would you put on a sterile glove and take that through the water and into her vagina and introduce any external bacteria into her vagina? Why would you do that? Okay. And what's the purpose of a vag exam? Curiosity. The baby's going to be born when the baby's born. Is it scheduling? Yes, I have done vag exams over the years. And yes, I have done vag exams on women who have been laboring in the tub, but more often I'll ask them to go to the bathroom and check them while they're sitting on the toilet. Or if they want to get back in the bed, that's fine. It's the goal of being in the tub is comfort, peace, and relaxation. I call it CPR for labor. It's the goal. It's not being born in the water, but it's an available option if she chooses it. And so if you want a vag exam and just have her stand up, put her foot on the edge of the tub or bring a chair over, have her put her foot on the edge of the chair and throw a blanket around her or a big towel, big fluffy robe and check her there. Oh, you're 8 and stretchy. Great. Wonderful. Fantastic. You can stay.
Well, I think as midwifery tries to understand itself as separate from medicine, there's a lot of coming to terms with such firmly established habits in medicine that really are not evidence-based. Right. And we're coming to understand how separate we really are by virtue of understanding what it is that we aren't doing, shouldn't do, don't do.
Right. I remember an old piece of film. It was in Spanish and it was called The Man Giving Birth. Look it up on YouTube.
Okay.
This guy with a big beard comes in and he's having contractions and the nurse stands there, the midwife stands there and says, "Are you in labor or aren't you in labor?" And it's kind of like that. If you're in labor is not finished until the baby attaches to the breast, period.
And the placenta detaches.
and the placenta detaches. Yes. Yeah. It's not over until it's over. And this, oh my gosh, when I'm at China, they check every 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
I have done births with doctors watching with not one single vag exam. And then I give them all the cues of, well, she was doing this. She was doing extra movement. She was making noise. And look at the rhombus of Michaelis, her back. That's absolutely 8 centimeters. And when it disappears, she's complete. And then the doctors start crying and going, "Oh my God, we have no idea."
Yeah.
So,
there's so much not being taught and so much not being understood.
Yeah. That's why it takes me 3 days to teach in Mexico the water birth certification course, because I put in all of the midwifery and I give them a separate certificate, making them a gentle birth physician.
That's beautiful. What you've done around the globe with your initiative is just exceptional. I honor you for your incredible work and commitment. I'm so grateful you came and had this chat with me today.
because you made that comment on Instagram.
Well, I truly am just, I'm in awe. I'm so grateful of you. I know that this information you've shared today will go a long way in helping providers reduce their fear and continue to humanize birth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Augustine. Stay safe.
You as well.